Hey guys, I'm Tay and I'm an addict.
I'm Steve, I'm an addict.
And this is Chaos in Recovery,
a podcast aimed towards mental health and addiction in a chaotic world. And today we have a special guest. His name is Maurice.
Yes. Hi, I'm Maurice. Also a grateful recovering addict.
Maurice, I'm going to let Taylor kind of take the lead on introducing you. But I am super grateful that you're here today. I know we had a short little talk on Zoom. And I think both me and Tay were very, very excited about having you on for a couple different reasons. But Tay?
Yeah. So I heard about you through a friend of mine. So I used to teach spin, and I went to this place a few weeks back. And my friend Jackie had told me about you. After we started the podcast, she was like, oh my gosh, it'd be so cool if you could get him on. Here's his information, his Instagram and everything. And I was like, oh, I have to look into it. So once I looked into your page and everything, I was fascinated. I was like, we have to get him on. I can't wait. And I was like, all right, I'm going to DM him right now. So I'm so glad that you were able to come on. Thank you so much for joining us. We kind of want to get a little background of what you do in the recovery world. First, if you can kind of give our audience kind of a little bit of a background of, we know that you're a big runner, and we also know that part of your running has to do with your recovery as well, correct?
Yes.
How did you start all of your charity? We know you have a charity going around as well. You are part of the Heron Project as well. You've done all of these marathons and everything. So I've done some research. So I want to hear your background and your information as to how you got into recovery. So we'll kind of get a little background of that, and then also what you're doing outside of recovery as well.
Okay. First of all, wicked grateful to be here. Thank you for the awesome introduction. And shout out to Jackie for keeping my name in the conversation. I'll try to give you a grand overview of everything. Cool. Name's Maurice from Providence, Rhode Island, born and raised in East Providence, 46 years old. I am celebrating 10 years of continuous recovery, completely clean and sober from all drugs, alcohol, and tobacco.
Awesome, man.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Soon?
I celebrated in March.
Oh,
March 12th
congrats.
was my anniversary date.
Yes.
It's been a long journey, so let's try to... So, grew up... East Providence, in the suburbs, 2-parent home, 1 sibling, really, really cool upbringing, played sports, got good grades in school, was literally one of those kids in school that was like, I'm never going to do drugs. Drugs are for losers. That's not going to get me anywhere. And I had that attitude throughout junior high, throughout high school, until I started to think I was invincible. And I started, and my story is my story. The coolest thing about recovery is we all have stories and we get to meet so many cool people. My specific story, so I'm always speaking on myself. I'm not a medical professional or anything like that, obviously. Marijuana was my gateway drug, because as soon as I tried smoking pot, I was like, this is awesome. What else can I do? Oh, we can drink and smoke? Oh, we can take a pill and drink and smoke? Oh, well, I'm not going to do anything crazy like sniff powder and that. Those guys are really crazy. I'll never do that.
Yeah.
And then it led, and then it led, and then it led. So to not spend too much time on the wrong things, I went from a student only focused on academics and having the coolest outfit and hanging out with, my friends and riding bikes on the weekend and trading baseball cards and playing sports. I went from that kid who said he would never do drugs and I never want to put it on just peer pressure because it was myself as well, to hanging out with the kids and myself that were doing drugs, alcohol, and more. I got introduced to selling drugs after high school graduation, and that was a downward spiral as well. So to kind of stay on track, from the moment I turned 18, after high school graduation, I went to a computer tech school, graduated that while I was actively using alcohol, cocaine, tobacco, you name it, I was using it if I could get my hands on it. That's when ecstasy was big. I was actively using and selling that. And I just had this attitude of, I have a full-time job. I go to computer tech school. I wear a shirt and tie. I paid for my own car. You can't tell me I can't party.
Yeah, everything looks good on the outside.
So my attitude was always like, shirt and tie. I look good. I feel good. I'm working hard. I can party hard. And I had friends and family that were like, Maurice, I think you're up to some bad stuff.
Oh, wow.
You need to slow down.
Yeah.
And at a very young age, I always had the self-awareness that I needed help. I remember walking into a Kodak clinic at like the age of 21, giving them my health insurance card saying, hi, my name's Maurice Lowman. I have a cocaine problem and I want to stop. I need help.
Wow.
And they put me in these group therapy sessions and I just wasn't ready.
Yeah.
Like I was showing up under the influence. I was sneaking in the back to like literally do a bump and smoke a cigarette and come back and act like I was like that nobody knew.
Sure.
You know? And people were like, wait, I thought this was like a drug meeting. Like this guy's getting high. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was always, my attitude was always like, I could do whatever I wanted. Like, so that spiraled. So that Mr. trying to be the guy on the streets and the guy on the bars with the coke and the drugs and the pills and Mr. Party, that spiraled out of control for years. I always had a full-time job. Whether I got fired and found another one, got fired and found another one, my justification was always like, well, I'm not as bad as that person.
Yeah.
I'm not as bad as that person. I still have a job. I still have my apartment. I still have my car. Then those things started to go.
Yeah.
I struggled with powder cocaine, alcohol, and marijuana for 8 to 10 years. Yeah. Never finding more than 6 months of clean time. And that clean time came, self-motivated because I needed to get a new job, pass a drug test. Those were my that's how I would stay clean. All of the things I said I would never do. Smoke crack, shoot heroin, be around crystal meth, all of the things, like I didn't even know what crystal meth was. I didn't even know what crack cocaine was at one age, and then I was introduced to it. I was actually a mortgage broker at the time when I was introduced to crack cocaine. And I speak very lightly about these things now because I overcame it, and I'm very, very grateful. I've seen a lot. I've lost friends in recovery. I've lost friends that I thought were clean and sober and had to go to their funeral. So I never want to make light of it, and I never want to get caught up in just talking about war stories, but the reason why someone like Jackie kept my name in the conversation when it comes to recovery is because I take so much pride in being super vocal about how bad it got and how I was able to overcome that.
Yeah.
So started smoking crack, started going to jail back and forth, losing jobs, losing relationships, got introduced to like a mixture of heroin and coke through a needle. I was always scared of a needle, so I would let somebody else administer it. Ended up being brought back to life by Narcan, by the Seekonk first responders and the Providence first responders, back to back in 2012 and 2013. Those were two of my darkest years, and we'll touch on that again in a minute. But 2008, 2009, after getting out of jail again, I said, this is it. You need to change your life. Me and a friend of mine had nowhere to go. We were working full time. We had blown our paycheck already. The weekend wasn't even over. We had nothing to our names because we used it all on alcohol and coke. And we're walking the streets, and he said, I know where we can go. And he took me to this homeless shelter in Providence called the Providence Rescue Mission. And through like word of mouth and kind of assessing the situation, I heard that they had a men's program there. I was scared as heck. I had never not had a friend to call and be like, can I crash on your couch?
Yeah.
Can I crash in your car? I know you live with your parents, but can I sleep in your car because I don't have anywhere to go tonight? I had burned every bridge. I had friends were like, Mo, we love you, but no, you're not crashing on my couch. No, you're definitely not sleeping in my car. Those kind of things. And I was scared at this shelter. I remember sleeping under the cross and being like, please, please, please. Like, it's easy to pray to your higher power. It's easy to pray to God when you're in trouble. And that's what I would do.
Yeah.
I would have these bouts of like, when I went to jail, when I was in trouble, I would pray. I would ask for forgiveness. I would ask for guidance. I always believe anybody that's trying to find the next best step in improving their life should have some faith in a higher power. I'm not here to preach about who you should believe in and so forth.
Sure.
So I slept under the cross. I felt safe. In the morning, I went to the front desk. I said, hey, my name's Maurice. I heard you had a men's program. I'm interested. I want to stay. And the guy, who I'm still friends with to this day, was like, what makes you different from every other guy that says he wants to stay because he has nowhere to go tonight? He goes, this is a serious program. It's a 6-month commitment, no cell phone, no girlfriend, no nothing. Like,
Wow.
we let you call your parents once a week if that's needed. He's like, but you do Bible studies, you do chores, and you live here. And there's an application process. So no, you can't get in today.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, not defeated. I was determined. I was like, I'm going to prove to him that I'm not just saying I want the program. Like,
Sure.
I knew I needed help. Like, I'm literally sleeping on the floor, getting a free sandwich and soda, asking if the showers are clean enough to use. Like, so I had hit that spot where I was like, I don't want to go back to jail. I don't want to beg my friends to sleep on their couch. I don't want my parents to see me being, not to use the wrong terminology, but like losing at life.
Yeah.
And so I came back the next morning. I filled out the application, stuck with the program. Unfortunately, 30 days into the program, I relapsed, begged my way back into it, came back 2 weeks later with the clean urine. They let me back in, kept my bed open. And that program saved my life at the time. I stayed clean and sober for over 3 years. I became a resident assistant. I was active in my local church. I was active in my family again. My family trusted me. My son was happy to see me on the weekends again. I had a full-time job. As an addict, you know how things like getting your driver's license, getting a car registered and insured, you know how those are big check marks.
Yeah.
And I did those things, and I was feeling great.
Sure.
However, in the back of my mind was always that I could probably party once more. Like,
How old were you at this time?
so definitely in my early 30s. Okay. And my pastor at the time said planned sin is the worst sin, and if you don't believe in God,
Sure.
and you're in recovery, a planned relapse. That's how it happens.
Absolutely.
You don't just relapse.
No,
Like, it's
it takes
planned.
weeks.
Oh, yeah.
It's planned. So in my head, and I never want to blame it on outside influences because it was all me, but there was an outside influence. There was a person that I used to party with that kind of planted the seed. They actually came by the sober house and asked for me and like left a note and was like, call me. And I was
Wow.
like, this is like why does this happen to me? Because now my brain's turning.
Sure.
I'm like, I can make up a story.
Yeah.
I can make up a story. On Friday night, I'm going to go out, I'm going to party, and I'll come back.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to know.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
one time.
And
Yeah.
I did. I went out on Friday night. I drank. I came back to the sober house on Saturday. I did my chores. I went to church on Sunday. I did my little jog. I did my push-ups. And I acted like nobody knew. So guess what? I went to work all week, and I tried it again on Friday night. And this time, people knew.
Yeah.
Failed the urine, got kicked out. No second chances. Like, you literally used in a sober house. You lied to everybody.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah.
Your bags are in a trash bag, and you have nowhere to go. I was so defeated because I kept using the words like, you threw away 3 years, you threw away 3 years, what are you going to do? Crashed at a friend's house, still had my job, was using every weekend, waking up broke on Mondays, back to like not having money for coffee and cigarettes. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Sure.
Going from like not even using cigarettes and like going out to eat and enjoying a coffee the way you're
Yeah.
supposed to, and now back to the guy that's like blowing his money on Friday nights, waking up on Monday without enough gas money to get to work. So I don't want to like dwell too much on the wrong stuff, but I'm trying to paint the picture here.
Yeah, please.
And at that time, the next couple of years were tough for me because I went right back to the streets, right back to the in and out of jail lifestyle. And I mean, I ended up selling my van for drug money. So waking up a couple days later, realizing that the van was gone. I mean, that was a really bad feeling. But I always had this, even when I was in prison, I had this positive attitude that I was like, you're still alive. Like, you're still a good guy. You can have a good life.
Yeah.
You just got to stop doing all this bad stuff. Like,
Yeah, right.
like the only thing stopping you, and the things that I say this story all the time. I was using in South Providence on this back street where I used to hang out, and we can get to that in a moment. And I would look up on the highway and see people sitting in traffic on like a Friday afternoon.
Wow.
And I would say, those people are living a normal life. They just got out of work. They're going to cash their check. They're going home to their family. They probably have plans this weekend. They're not sitting on the back street chasing pills, powders, pipes, bottles. I need to be up there. How am I going to get up there? Well, I don't have a job, I don't have a car, and I'm addicted to drugs and alcohol. So I would have these pep talks to myself. Maurice, remove this stuff. Remove this stuff. You don't need to live in this underworld. You need to live in this world up here. You can be up here. And I've said this in a few other interviews. Like, I wanted to prove that I could get back into the car business and not be a drug addict and not be an alcoholic and be successful at sales, because that's what I love. And I wanted to run marathons. I had started running in that program.
Yeah.
And the running was the foundation to my recovery, but I gave it up. I couldn't be consistent with running if I was chasing drugs.
Sure.
So I had this mantra and this motivation attitude. I was like, I want to sell cars and run marathons, but I was a homeless drug addict with no driver's license. So it was like a big swing. So I was like, how do I get here if I'm down here? The first thing you have to do is stop using.
Yeah.
So I literally had drugs in my pocket, a bottle of alcohol, a pack of cigarettes, some money on me. I thought I was all set for the weekend. And I said, you know what? It's never going to stop. Yeah. It's never going to stop if you don't stop. And I'm so grateful that I've always had that self-awareness. I took the crack out of my pocket, gave it to the individual that I was with, and he was like, what are you doing? I said, I'm done. He said, no, you're not. I said, I'm done.
Wow.
I said, I'm done. Now, I couldn't let go of the bottle. I walked to a house that I knew there was going to be no drugs. I drank that bottle that weekend. I smoked those cigarettes, and I promised myself on Monday morning I would go look for a job and I would never touch drugs again. And that was March 12th, 2015. And
Holy shit.
So I've never picked up a drug since. And I'm so grateful. So hopefully I didn't get too far off track, but that's the whole story.
That's fantastic.
The running, as a kid, my grandmother used to say, Maurice, you're going to be a runner with those strong legs. And I never grasped it. I never ran track. I never excelled in any sports as a kid. So when I found running as my mental tool, so to back up a little bit, let's say I had a bad night of drinking and drugging, I'd go for a run the next morning and I'd feel great. I'd have a little bit of confidence.
Oh, wow.
I'd have a little bit of that brush the dirt off my shoulders attitude. And I'd be like, you're a good guy. You can do good things. You can be healthy. You don't need to be chasing drugs, alcohol, and cigarettes every single day. Why are you doing this? You could be a guy that goes to the gym and cares about his health and runs and
why can't I be addicted to something else?
Exactly.
Healthy,
So there was that there, but I was never consistent with it. Once I became consistent with it, it was the foundation piece. And one of the first things that was really a huge swing for me was when I was in that program. A woman volunteer that helped the homeless women came up to me one day and tried to make this short. She gifted me with a brand new pair of sneakers and said, I went home and told my husband about you, how you're sober and you're clean and you have a drug problem and you're trying to stay away from that life and you're using running. He's a retired track coach. We're both proud of you. We bought you these sneakers.
Oh my God.
And it wasn't the monetary part of it. It was the fact that I was being recognized for something positive. And I wasn't being recognized for the kid that was going back to jail for 3 months, for the kid that got fired. Some of my friends were like, Mo, how do you get these jobs and get fired? These are jobs that people would work their butts off to get.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity at 23 years old to be an assistant manager at a Lexus dealership, and I got fired. I got fired for failing the drug test. And that was my story over and over again. So to be recognized for something positive, it was like a catapult. And when I did my very first half marathon, I was only 2 weeks released from prison. And big thanks to my girlfriend at the time, who believed in me and signed me up for this race. She knew I had a dream of running a marathon and was like, you need to do something positive when you get out.
Wow.
You're getting out in 2 weeks. I signed you up for a half marathon. I was like, that's awesome. That is so awesome. I had never done a 5K. I'd never done I'd never done anything. So I went to Marshall's. I bought a pair of sneakers off the clearance rack and showed up at this half marathon and just ran it and had so much fun.
Oh, I love it.
Had so much fun. At the end of the race, this woman was showing me how to check my time. She's like, bro, you did awesome. She gives me this high five, and that's where the mantra, the high fives and positive vibes was born. Yeah. But the biggest piece of that story was this man came up to me and he said, I know you. I know you. He said, your last name's Lowman. He goes, you were in handcuffs on my bus last year. He goes, I'm a sheriff.
Oh, yeah.
He goes, you look great. He's like, most guys don't turn their life around like this. So
great.
I'm blown away. He's like, I'm here cheering on my daughter. She's running her first half marathon. I'm like, I'm running my first half marathon. So he's like, you should be friggin' proud of yourself, brother. And I'll never forget that feeling of being, because when you're in those other situations, when you're handcuffed on a bus going to court, you're just a number. You're just a guy that's like wasted opportunities, going back to jail. Like, you'll be back. Here he is, messed up again. So to be recognized and to be encouraged by someone who, like, I looked up to, like, do you know what I mean? Here's a guy that's living an awesome life.
Yeah, right.
And he's like, Mo, you should be proud of yourself.
Yeah.
And my mom was there, my aunt was there. Like, that's a huge piece of it too.
Sure.
But I will never forget that. And he's like, keep it up, keep it up. And I said, running can really open some doors for me. So the running has been super consistent. I call myself the Marathon Panda. You can't call yourself the Marathon Panda if you're not outside running marathons. I run a bunch of marathons. I sell cars now. I'm the face of the dealership. So fast forward, the recovery, the running, like I have all these mantras like too blessed to be stressed, grateful to be here, all that stuff. And I just stay super vocal about my story. My story includes the incarceration, prostitution, being homeless, being brought back to life by Narcan, like things that people don't always talk about. And I don't want to get caught up in the war stories, but I've had people message me and say, Maurice, the fact that you talk so open about this, I'm able to talk to my brother.
Yep.
I think he's up to prostitution.
Sure.
I think he's using heroin. He doesn't want to tell anybody.
Yeah.
You're open about it. I showed him your story. I showed him your page. You made a reel once that you said this, and she's like, thank you. So, like, that's what keeps me going.
Yeah.
I don't want to shy away from it. I'm not proud of it. I remember the first time it was, like, published in, like, the Boston Globe, my story about the stuff about being brought back by Narcan. And, like, my dad read it. He didn't know. My mom knew because I talked to her about everything. But he didn't know, and he was pretty upset because it's not something that a parent wants to read. But I have the attitude that, like, I'm so friggin' grateful to be alive.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that my parents are still here to see me be sober and not see me homeless, not see me. Like, it broke their heart to be like, you can't live here. We've let you live here a dozen times.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I really appreciate you letting me share. My role in the recovery community is just encouraging others, whether they're newcomers, whether they're long-term. I'll never, like, I'm sure you know, you meet so many cool people.
Yeah.
I got up and spoke recently. My buddy chairs a meeting, and I spoke, and this guy got up and was like, you're awesome. You remind me of myself. He's like, I got 27 years. I got a beautiful wife, beautiful kid. I got a business. He goes, me and my 9 best friends growing up in Worcester, Mass. He goes, 7 of them are dead. Oh. 1 of them stays home, and I'm clean and sober, and I'm thriving. And he goes, I wouldn't be thriving if I didn't help out other young men and women in the program. He said, keep showing up, keep sharing. And that's the stuff that keeps me fired up, because I want to be the guy that says I have 27 years.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. I want to get back to, like, earlier childhood, before you even picked up a substance. Like, for me, I already had these feelings of less than, not being validated by other people, or so I thought, not thinking I was going to get the girls that I wanted to, like, always just feeling a notch below and feeling like I was alone, but everybody was still around me. Did you have those feelings growing up?
I think it was more. So I've had people ask me similar questions, and I never. So I got, like, made fun of, like, by, like, what they said was the cool kids. You know what I mean?
Sure.
We had a little group of friends, and we thought we were cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We rode BMX
Same.
bikes. We traded baseball cards, and we bought the sneakers that we liked and stuff. I always was like, just. I felt like I didn't fit in with the athletes. I didn't fit in with the cool kids. My first thoughts about using was more like, it was more like a rebellious act against, like, myself. Like, it was like a sneaky, like, what can I get away with? I always use that word, always comes to mind, the word sneaky, because I I started to do drugs that you don't just walk around telling people that you do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
There was a time, and even now, like, you know, marijuana and stuff is very socially acceptable, but you don't walk into a party, and well, you can, but you don't just announce the fact that you're under the influence of cocaine.
Yeah.
You don't announce the fact that you were smoking crack.
Right.
Like, you know, you're usually not in the best social settings if you're using some of those materials. But before I ever picked up, I think, I don't want to say I was trying to fit in. The best way to put it is I put myself, instead of being with the groups that concentrated on a 4-year college degree, not getting high and drunk, I was hanging out with the kids that thought it was cool to get high and drunk. I'll never forget, this was before the Providence Place Mall was even built, I believe, and we were down in that area, and one of my best friends from elementary and junior high, him and his brother were celebrating with their dad. They had just, one of them had just gotten accepted to URI. The other one was celebrating, like, about to graduate. And me and my friends were, like, using some bad substances, smoking pot, taking acid, like, just doing crazy stuff in that same little park. And he looked at me and he said, Maurice, he's like, what happened to college? Like, what happened? Like, you, like, I thought you were going to go to college. Like, I thought, like, he's like, don't you think about that anymore? And I'll never forget, like, he wasn't trying to put me down. He was just genuinely concerned, and he said, I care about you. Like, you're such a good kid.
Yeah.
He's like, you shouldn't be out here doing this kind of stuff. And because he could tell that I was up to no good. And I'll never forget, like, it was like the first time that someone met me with, like, compassion. Like, he cared.
Yeah.
He really cared, but he was like, bro, like, you shouldn't be doing this. Like, there's this other stuff going on that you could be doing. And I was like, why didn't I go that way? Why didn't I go that way? Why am I over here? And then it was always like, just like I was making up my own excuses as to, like, why, it's too late to go to a 4-year school now.
Yeah.
It's too late to not be the guy that thinks, like, I used to think I was like some cool, like, drug dealing, like, you know, party guy that everybody wanted to hang out with. And it wasn't a good look for me, obviously.
Yeah. So you believe that, like, rather than, like, for instance, Steve had that, you know, those feelings of not feeling like that he belonged and stuff. Like, you believe that, like, your way getting into, like, drugs and alcohol was, like, putting yourself just in different other situations, like, with the people that wanted to party rather than the people that didn't. Like, I think that I have a little bit of both, right? Like, because I definitely stuck myself into the people that just wanted to party. Like, I played sports growing up, but then I shied away from that, you know, and I stuck myself in the wrong group. That, like, led me to I was hanging out with older kids. I was hanging out with people that wanted to drink, wanted to smoke, you know, like, that was, I feel like that around that age, like the 15 high school year age, that was the way that you either chose. You went with that group or you went with another group, right? The group that education or not.
Yep. And I totally agree. And when I started using, I remember, like, we thought it was so cool that we were known as the kids that smoke pot. But remember, 6 months earlier, I was the kid that was like, I'll never smoke pot. That's for losers.
Yeah.
And once again, like, my story, marijuana was the gateway drug. For some people, they went to 4-year colleges, went even beyond that, and were able to experiment with stuff in moderation. I don't like that attitude, because with me, moderation was never a thing. Like, I couldn't come to your house, have a couple of beers, smoke a joint, and then go be normal.
Yeah.
It was always like, what else can we do?
0 to 100.
And when I found that identity of, like, I felt like I never had a true identity. So when I became the kid that was, like, known to party and had all the party materials,
that was your identity.
Yeah, that was my identity. And I was like, this is who I am. Like,
awesome.
and I remember like having a full-time job and trying to be like Mr. Hustler on the street. And I was like, this is, like, wicked cool. Like, but I wasn't good at the hustling on the street because I became my number one customer. Yeah. And obviously, being a drug addict, alcoholic, you're not doing good at your number one job, like your full-time job.
Sure.
And you're not being a good son. You're not being a good brother. You're not being a good dad. You're not being a good family person. You're definitely not a good employee. Like, I'm repeating myself, but I didn't see that. It was just like, full throttle, fast forward, like living this fast life. Like I thought I was like some guy out of a movie or something that like I deserved to live. And like the word sneaky and also like the word entitlement like always comes to mind. Like I used to feel like I deserved to party like this because I worked all week.
Yeah.
I earned this paycheck. You can't tell me that I can't go party.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not begging you for money.
Yep.
I'm not. So, and that's another thing. Like there was always these justifications, even when I got into really bad stuff. I remember I saw somebody steal a laptop one night, like literally smashed a window and stole a laptop, and I was mortified. I was like, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "It's a laptop," and I'm like, "I would never do that."
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm like, "That's a line I wouldn't cross. I would never do that." But here I am, hanging out at some pretty seedy, suspect places, trying to hustle up money, or like spending my entire paycheck at a drug house. But I wouldn't steal a laptop. So I'm like, I'm not as bad as that guy.
Sure.
You know what
Justifying,
I mean? I sold my van for drug money, but I didn't steal the laptop.
Sure.
So it's like, I'm just so grateful to bounce out of it. I've been really fortunate to have some public speaking opportunities to speak to kids because one of my passions is speaking to kids at the time. So I'll never forget one time when I was in prison. This young man came in to speak to the group, and it was at an NA meeting. Yeah. And they said we have a guest speaker, and it's easy to get fired up about NA meetings and Bible studies and stuff when you're in prison because you can either sit in your cell and do nothing, or you can sign up for the NA meeting and sign up for the Bible study.
I would go to Muslim church.
Yeah, exactly. Like so like I went every single one time the guy was like, "You don't speak Spanish, you can't go to Spanish church," and I was like, "Oh man." But so this guy came in. And he had like a cool hip outfit on, you know, a fresh haircut. He was like on fire for recovery, for the Bible. Like he was just so fired up and enthusiastic. And I felt so relatable to him. Like I felt like he was speaking to me and he was saying, you don't have to be in here. You don't have to come back. You can get out. You can live a good life. You can do this. You can do that. He's like, I was in your seat before. And that fired me up so much because it was somebody I could relate to. Yeah. And I was like, if he can do it, if he can be there, I want to be there. I want to be the guy that shows you, no matter how close to hopelessness that you think you are, there's always hope. Yeah. I was the guy that if I was your coworker, your brother, your ex-boyfriend, your cousin, you would say, Mo, I love you, but I'm all set. You're never going to change. You're never going to change. I was 35, 34, and still using crack cocaine. Sure. And still, and then to make it worse, got into things like crystal meth and acted like this isn't as bad as crack. You know, and hanging out with those circles of people. Yeah. I remember having one of my friends, and rest in peace, but he said, get away from Providence shit. Like you're smoking crack. He's like, come up here with me in Boston. And I did. I went to Boston. He had this like cool condo, like was hanging out with like some DJ guy, like just all this crazy stuff. But he was dealing and using crystal meth and acting like it was pot compared to crack. Yeah, and it was like 100 times worse. Yeah, not to say anyone's better than the other, but what I'm saying is like these were the things, and now I'm like, and he had like this scam going on with like, you know, stolen goods and stolen like Apple products, and like I can remember having a conversation with my mom on the phone, like telling her I was selling iPads, and I was like, I had a job, and I'm telling this lie to myself, trying to make it sound like I was doing the right thing, and she's like, what do you mean? She's like, you don't have a job? She's like, you know, and all those conversations like breaking her heart, like you know, with broken promises and stuff like that. So I'm just wicked grateful to have found long-term recovery, not have to lie about where I've been, where's my money, what I'm doing, who I'm with, and to still be able to be focused on something healthy. Like one of the jokes I make is like Instagram and marathons are way safer than whiskey and cocaine, but in my case, that's the truth. Yeah. Like I'd rather be addicted to those two things than the other two things.
It's so true.
Yeah.
You mentioned your mom a lot. You guys are very close. Are you close with your whole family?
So it's only me, my mom, my dad, and my brother. I'm very close with my brother. We live together. Very close with my mom. Very close with my dad. My mom and I have been like this for years. We talk every single day. Even when I was doing really bad, she wanted that phone call. And if it went more than a day or two without the phone call, she would get really, really worried because you know.
Yeah.
She knows what's going on out there. And then like when I put myself in these bad positions and situations, like I would get jobs at like a nightclub and stuff, and she would be so worried that I'd be hanging out with the wrong person, like just to get a bag of drugs. And she's like watching like these unsolved mysteries type shows where like people get brought out to the woods and stuff, and that stuff really happens.
It does.
And she's like, what if that happens to you? What if that happens to you? And I just remember those conversations, like getting her so worried and so upset. And now like we'll joke around, like we'll go out for breakfast, and I'll be like, "Aren't you glad I'm not like calling you from underneath that bridge over there?" Like, and she's like, "It's not funny." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's true." Like, you know, like I literally used that payphone when it used to work. It's but it's like we don't have. She doesn't have to worry anymore. If she doesn't hear from me for one day, it's probably because like I'm traveling out of town to run a marathon. Or something. I'm gonna call her the next morning. So it's a much better feeling. I have 2 adult sons, and one of them I was separated from for over 18 years because of my drug and alcohol addiction, and because he found me on social as a positive influence, as a runner. He finally made the decision to be like, "Hey, Dad, I've been thinking about this for a long time and I want to meet." And I hadn't seen him since he was 5 years old. And we got reconnected. We ran a 5K together. We ran a marathon together.
Holy shit.
And it's literally like something out of a Hallmark movie.
It sounds like
because I would run around town with this, "Hey, my name's Mo. Listen to my story. I'm Mr. Positive. I'm Mr. Sobriety." But I had this weight on my shoulders that I was a deadbeat dad because here's my beautiful, awesome son in Rhode Island that I see all the time, and then here's my beautiful, awesome son in Florida that I haven't seen in 18 years. And so when we got reconnected, I had this fear that he was going to be like, "Thanks for nothing. You weren't there for this. You weren't there for that." But it was the exact opposite.
Really?
He was like, "I'm so happy that we get to meet. You're invited to the wedding." Like it was just a beautiful reconnection. So now they're both in my life. They both see the resiliency and the comeback story, and they see like how hard I fight to maintain the long-term recovery. And I'm comfortable enough where like I know I'm not going to go pick up a drink or a substance. However, I still talk about it every day because it's like with anything, I'm one bad decision away. Remember when I was 3 years in and I started planning, and all of a sudden 1 paycheck's gone, 2 paychecks gone, and now my van's gone. And now I'm kicked out and I have nowhere to live. So if that can happen 3 years in, I never want to be the guy. And nowadays with everything that's going on, I say it all the time. Like I don't have another run in me.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I'm afraid if I put a substance in my body, I would die. Whether it was laced or not. You know, the drugs that I was addicted to, one bad hit, one bad anything, and it could be your last. And I've seen it happen. Like in one 18-month span, I went to 3 different funerals from men that I was very close with that were in long-term recovery. One was bouncing in and out of it, but the other 2 were in recovery. And all it took was, one night. And it's super, super sad. And that's why, like, we're the lucky ones. The fact that you're here hosting me and allowing me to share and celebrating recovery on your own, like, we're so friggin' lucky because so many people don't make it out. I always have this attitude, like, it's our duty to shine the light for others to see, like, if they have a friend, a family member, a loved one that's struggling, like, don't give up hope on them. Don't give up hope. Obviously, don't enable them, but don't give up hope. And I remember, like, being on the streets and like shout out to like Project Weber in Providence, Jonathan and Richie, like they came up to me and they met me where I was at. They were like, and not to sound too cliche, but that's exactly what they did. They offered me fast food and cigarettes and they were like, "We're not going to give you cash, but if you need like a clean shirt, I got you. If you want a pack of cigarettes, Wendy's is up the street if you want a burger, and I think you should really think about getting clean because we remember how awesome you were when you were clean, and we don't like to see you out in the streets like this." And those words were like just the right amount. Because at that time, that was right before I made the decision to stop. So to have people that like believed in me that I didn't even think were paying attention, that were like, hey, we saw you on Facebook last year, like talking about sobriety. Like, what are you doing out here?
Yeah.
And like, it wasn't to put me down. It was to lift me up and be like, hey, you could be doing way better than this.
Yep.
And I'll never forget that. And those were some of the things that like catapulted me in the right direction to be like, there are people that care. And that was one of the motivating factors, was knowing that not only did I have an awesome family, but there were people out there that would be cheering for me and there for me once I started making the right decision. And the whole thing with like the social media, like it can be a negative tool, but it can be a super positive tool. I say this all the time, as corny as it sounds, like I never took a selfie and said, hey, I just blew my paycheck on drugs. Do you know what I mean? Like, so the whole like, hey, look at me, I just ran 6 miles. It's because it's not just, hey, look at me. It's like, hey, look what you can do.
Yeah.
Like, I was never going to let you know that I lost my van because of drug addiction, but I'm going to let you know that I just ran a marathon. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
even if you don't want to hear about it, I'm going to tell you anyway. So,
show people it's possible.
yeah, show people it's
the power of
possible.
example,
And it's always like, and then when I get to share, it reminds me that other people have stories. Other people have lost loved ones. Other people are celebrating recovery. Other people have been through some really bad stuff. And even if you can't relate to drug and alcohol addiction, if it's mental health, if it's loss of a loved one, if it's loss of a job, you can overcome anything by just taking, like what the AA and NA steps are, like one step at a time, one day at a time. Like, it's going to get better. It might not get better today.
Sure.
It might not get better next month. Mm-hmm. But in 3 months,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? If you remove the layers that are, and it's one. I was lucky enough to be in a campaign once where it was called Positive Changes One Step at a Time. With me, it's running. You don't have to become a marathon runner to get clean and sober.
Yeah.
But you have to start taking steps in the opposite direction. I used to have a little bit of clean time, and it was almost like the steps were already going in the wrong direction. They were already going. Like, I already had in my mind, like, I paid a couple of bills. I can go back to the drug house. Like, nobody's going to know. I just got paid. I get paid again next week. Like, what's one weekend? And it was like, but you have 3 months. Yeah. What are you doing? Like, why are you going, oh, and there I am.
Yeah.
And there's the 3 months
So
is gone.
quick.
The 3 months is gone, and it's like, wow, what did you do? Why did you do that? So
it's tough to wrap your head around the one day at a time thing when you're in early recovery.
It really is.
Because I'm a person my story is filled with relapse. And 3 months, 2 months, 6 months, 10 months. And that path that you're on, it feels so great at the beginning, and then one thing happens, and then you feel like, oh, what's all this fucking worth? What, like one relationship type deal, or anything can throw you off and set you back that one step, and then you lose sight of that one day at a time thing. And, for me, it took me so many relapses to understand that I'm going to have a lot of of days where it's one step back. But the point is, I need to deal with those days, because that day is just going to end at the end of that 24 hours.
That's right.
If I just throw it all up in the air and say, what is this? What am I doing all this shit for? Why am I staying sober if I haven't seen my kids in fucking 6 months? What is all this worth if I just got denied for another job, or I haven't got my license? And it's so tough once you ruined your life, but it's so true. You stick with it day after day after day, and you start to see the little fruits of your labor peeking through a little bit by little bit. And if people just fucking hold on for dear life, and just hold on, man, everything gets so much better.
That you just hit it like so hard, because and that's such a good attitude, mindset, perspective, everything. When we're early on in recovery, everything, it's like you're dealing with everything for the first time without drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I used to just, I'd be super anxious about something, I'd go use.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be super worried about something, I'd go use. I'd be super depressed or just like down on myself or happy. I'd go happy, I'd go use.
Yeah.
So just the
Anything.
first few days of not using, never mind the first few weeks. And then, so you're dealing with stuff, not just life, but like emotions. Like my first breakup being sober, I was like, why does this hurt so bad? Like, what are you, like, what is this
Yeah.
crazy? Like,
That shit is no
you're
joke.
You're
Yeah,
40,
it
you're 40
is.
years old. Like, you know, why is this so tough? And I'm
Yeah.
like, because I used to be on drugs and alcohol if a girl dumped me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and when you're early on, you don't know how you're going to get your driver's license. You don't know how you're going to get an apartment. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You don't know how a woman or a man is gonna view you.
You feel so far
You
removed.
see far removed, and I have to douse myself because there was, until this day, I wake up and I could focus on, like, I know a lot of men and women in my life that have never had a problem with drugs and alcohol. And not to tie everything to, like, you know, money and things like that, but they're at a certain level in life where I'm just not at.
Yeah.
So I could focus on that and be like, well, I'm not there and I don't have this and I don't have that. But I have my health, my sobriety. You know what I mean? I have a job. I have a family. Like, so I focus on everything that I do have because I would really get stuck in a rut if I was like, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have that. And I just read this thing the other day, and I'm sure you've read it 100 times, where, like, remember when you wished you had everything that you have right now. Remember when you, whether you were praying, wishing, begging, but remember when, like, waking up and making your favorite cup of coffee and putting on your favorite shoes and, you know, driving somewhere. Remember where that was, like, not even a possibility?
Yeah.
Like, no matter what your circumstance was, like, it doesn't have to be prison or rehab, but just remember when those weren't realities, and now they are. And I come up with all these, like, I keep using the same word, but these corny mantras, like, it might not be steak and potatoes every day, but if it's peanut butter and jelly, like, you're still doing pretty good. Like, you're still doing pretty good, because it could be a lot worse. It could be, things could be a lot worse. And like, you know, I was so overwhelmed when I found out what I had to do to get my driver's license back. I was like, oh my gosh,
sucks.
like the child support, the court fines, the failure to appears, the driving on suspendeds, all of these things. The lady gave me a list, and she was like, good luck, you know? And I was like, I'll be back. And I could see it. She was like, okay, yeah.
Okay, bud.
So, and it was about 18 months. It was about 18 months.
How rewarding.
I know.
The coolest part of the story is when I went to the DMV, it was the same woman.
Oh my God, I love
She
it.
saw the checklist, and she was like, guy, like, you did it. And I was like, that's right, I did it. I was like, I told you I would do it. And she was like, you should be so proud of yourself, because most guys would just drive on a suspended license for the rest of their life. And I can't say it enough. It's the little pieces of positive encouragement when someone says, great job, Maurice, like, oh, I heard just, like, you look good, like, you're staying clean, like, oh, you have a new job, or, like, you know, so-and-so said they saw you, and, oh, I saw you at this marathon, or I saw you over here. Like, those little pieces of encouragement, they go so far. And especially me, like, I obviously like the, hey, look at me, but it's like, I wasn't getting that when I was doing the wrong stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I just want people to know, like, I want to deliver the hope, the gratitude, the positivity through my story. I love being involved with the Heron Project because they drill the mindset of talking to these kids and parents now, and not like, hey kids, this is what happens when you become a drug addict. Like, I don't want people to think, like, I never want to leave a setting where I've had the opportunity to speak to somebody and let people think that, like, you can go crazy for 10 years and then get your life together. Because you might not make it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
You might not make it out. And you've done so much damage. Physically, mentally, emotionally, never mind to your family, never mind, like, if you've lost possessions, like, never mind all of the progress that you haven't taken, and you might not live. The reality of it is drugs and alcohol kill people. And I never want to not talk like that's a reality. So they drive the point home, Chris Heron specifically, about day one. So if you're thinking about using, if you're thinking about being out of place, if you're thinking about not fitting in, if you think you need a substance, let's talk about that now, because you don't. You don't need a substance. Think about who you can call, who you can count on, who you can hang out with. Think about who would be proud of you for making the right decision.
Yeah.
You know, not everybody loves sports, not everybody loves music, not everybody loves academics, but you have a lot of things in life that you can follow that don't include substances. So to get these kids, or to get the parents to realize that, like, things like smoking and a little bit of drinking before 21, like all these things, like, it does lead to other stuff.
Yeah.
And not every kid is strong enough to be like, no, I don't do that.
I love that you said that.
No, I don't do that.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't.
Me neither.
I wasn't. I wanted to try everything.
Yeah.
When someone like, I had never seen cocaine unless it was in a movie. So when someone introduced me to, like, the selling of it, I thought I was Mr. Cool Guy, and it was only a matter of time where I was going to try it.
Yeah.
And then once I tried it, I get it. I know there's people out there that are like, oh, I tried it once, I'll never do it again.
No.
That's great, but
You're like, that's not me.
And actually, Chris Herron from the Herron Project says it. He's like, it took me, I don't know the exact number, but he's like, it took me 18 years to stop after that first line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And my story is so similar. Like, I did my first line, and for the next 12, 14 plus years, I was a vicious drug addict.
Yeah.
Like, and it wasn't just because of sniffing one line. It was because I did everything under the sun, and acted like it was okay.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful. When I say I'm grateful to be here, the driving force is, like, I know how lucky I am to be alive, and then to have these opportunities to talk and share and use my voice to inspire, encourage, and to be healthy enough to do something I'm passionate about. So I sell cars, I'm in advertising, and for the dealership, they're my corporate sponsor for the Boston Marathon.
Oh, wow.
So shout out to Kia of Attleboro. They're the absolute best. My boss believes in me.
That's awesome.
When he found out that I was a charity runner running Boston, and I was at the time raising money for autism and for Rett syndrome, and he just thought it was cool that I had this passion outside of the dealership, and it was about something positive, and I could represent the dealership in a positive light, not just, hey, come buy a car from us.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, this guy's doing something cool for the community. And it was funny because someone at one of his other stores was also a charity person through biking, I think.
Cool.
So he saw the relevance, and he was like, running a marathon is awesome, and you're raising money for charity, and you're talking about being sober. Like, I'll support this. So, so lucky to have a job that believes in me, a family that believes in me, and have all these doors open in the community. The running community literally has saved my life, not just Instagram, but the in real life community, because when I had that 3 years and I threw it away, I didn't have the social connections. I didn't have the accountability. I didn't have... And it's not just receiving the, hey, great job. It's being able to engage with other people, and then seeing, like, there's so many people out there that deal with so much in life, whether people, like, go through the worst things, like losing a child or losing a spouse. Like, I can't imagine what it's like to wake up with that kind of stuff. So if I get to wake up, I'm going to talk about the joys of sobriety and recovery, because that's my story. But I also want to talk about how we just need to be grateful and kind to everybody, because you never know what somebody's going through. And it's rough that, like, so many bad things had to happen for people to bring mental health to the forefront. But I used to be very ignorant to the fact that people struggled with mental health. There's no other way to put it. And I always want to share that, because I would just assume, like, you got a good life. Like, what are you upset about? What are you depressed about? Like, you know, and you can never assume.
Sure.
You can never assume what somebody's going through, what's going on in their mind. And I think it's more important now than ever to just be super kind and compassionate and be a real friend, be somebody that like someone can open up to and share with. Like I feel like everybody I talk to, I treat them like a therapist. So I don't really need I don't need to go to therapy because I just talk to everybody like they're my therapist and they listen and put up with this.
So the Heron Project, how did you get hooked up with them?
So I saw them on social way back in like 2016, 2015 probably. So I was new to the social media community, new to the running community, and I knew that they were a sobriety group. And I was like, that seems like a cool run club. I wonder what they're about. Knew a little bit about Chris Herron's story, who was a professional basketball player, lost his career due to drug addiction, and now he's 15 years clean and travels the country talking to kids. And his wife and kids stuck with them, and it's a great story.
Yeah,
really,
it's a documentary too, right? Yeah,
really genuine, down to earth, awesome gentleman. So I followed one of like the lead runners, who happened to be like the director of like fundraising and charity events for the Heron Project. Her name's Pam, and I was like, I need to meet one of these people. I need to get involved somehow. And I met her at like the Boston 5K one year and just like asked for a selfie and said, oh, I follow you on social. I think you're awesome, because she's in recovery. She runs a ton of marathons.
Cool.
And she's everything that like I want to be, as far as like I've read stories and heard podcasts about like how she goes to like drug courts and talks to young women about like if someone got their first DUI and is facing 30 days in jail for drug possession, she's there to be like, hey, listen, I was here.
Oh, I love it.
And now I'm here because I'm sober.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to do, because the person that's 2 weeks clean doesn't see it.
Nope.
Sure.
They look at someone that has 6 months, 9 months, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and they're like, I don't know. They don't know what it's like.
Yeah.
They don't know what it's like. And we do know what it's
Yes.
like. Because we didn't get to 6 months, 9 months, 1 year without getting to the 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I remember having 30 days. I thought I had the whole world figured out, and I relapsed. I went out. They let me out for the day to go pay a court fine, and I went to the bar.
Fuck.
I went to the bar, and it was like, I'm like, what made you come to the bar? Like, and it was too late. I had already ordered the shot, and then I was already on the phone with the drug dealer.
Yeah.
And it was like, you couldn't make it 31 days, like, because you just don't see. You have to stay the path. You have to believe in yourself that long term, it's gonna get better. I just wasn't ready. I look back on that day a lot, and I'm like, why would you do that? But it happened, and you were open about how relapse is part of your story. Relapse is part of mine too. I don't want it to be again, but it was then. But so, found her, asked her for a selfie, hooked up with her on social. And then I found out that they have like marathon teams for Boston to run for their charity group. I applied 1 year, didn't get in, received the direct email back like, hey, we love your story, we love your attitude, don't be discouraged. You should apply again. We get a lot of applicants. You should apply again. And they gave me like an honorary bib for the Falmouth Road race, which for people in the runners community know that the Falmouth Road race is wicked significant. It's a really cool event. Once a year, it's a 7-miler. Like thousands of people come.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so I joined their team for that event. And every time I saw somebody, and that's the thing, it's like you're wearing the hoodie.
Yeah.
It's automatically going to be a conversation starter. And you want somebody to talk to you about recovery. You want somebody to ask you if you're sober, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
So when I saw somebody wearing Heron Project, I'd be like, oh, I'm sober too. I'm clean too. Like I just celebrated 3 years. I just celebrated 4 years. Or vice versa. I'm wearing it, and somebody comes up to me and is like, thank you for what you're doing. Yeah. I lost my son last year.
Yep.
And that stuff, that goes so far. Or thank you for what you're doing. My brother found a program. He just celebrated 1 year. Like, those are the stories that you want to hear. So I was so grateful to get hooked up with them. This past April was my second Boston Marathon for them. It was my seventh total for Boston, but my second with them. They just announced and invited me to be an ambassador for the team. So just basically just an opportunity to stay super vocal about the joys of sobriety. And if somebody's struggling, be there for them and try to connect them to the right services and the right resources.
Yeah,
because that's the other thing. I'm very fortunate that I always had that self-awareness. Like, when I was at that homeless shelter, I was like, I heard they had a program. I want the program.
Yeah.
I'm not naive to the fact that not everybody has like that inner. Like I wanted it. I wanted to get clean.
Yeah.
I wanted to stop using, and I asked for help. I wasn't ashamed to be like, hey, I'm homeless because I'm a drug addict.
Yeah.
Like, how can I get help?
Yeah.
And there are programs out there. I know society has kind of shifted, and I know like the stuff out there, people say it's limited, and there's not beds and there's not this. But if you really want help, or if you have a friend or a loved one that needs help, you can get it. You just have to ask, and you have to be willing. If someone like the guy that told me, he said, come back tomorrow and apply, and you're not sleeping here tomorrow night. Like, you're just applying.
Yeah.
But I wanted it. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I still talk to people that didn't even know detoxes were a thing.
Right.
You know, didn't even know that there was a place that they could go get help and get off of alcohol medically, you know? And, you know, it surprises me. I've been trying to get clean for 18 years, since I was 18 years old, 19 years old. And so I knew all about the detox. I've been to so many detoxes, so many rehabs and stuff. And, you know, I spoke to a lady maybe last week, and she was just coming into AA, and she was talking about how she was blown away how there's so many fucking meetings in Rhode Island alone.
There are.
You know, it's something like 660 something meetings a week.
Yeah.
Just in fucking Rhode Island. And that's just AA.
Right.
Never mind NA and all recovery and all the other meetings and stuff like that. But there are so many resources, you know, and to be in a position you're in, I can only imagine how, you know, people might come to you for something like that for a family member and be like, you know, what can I do for them and things like that. And that must be such a validating thing for your recovery, but also you as a human. You know, like the things that you're doing are shined so far that people need to come to you and ask you, hey, like, what can I do for him?
It is, and it helps me. So there's so many times where I have to remind myself, and I have people in my corner that help me. Put the ego in the back pocket. Like, you're doing great. Yeah. You're doing great, but you're still a recovering addict. Yeah. And I'll never forget one time I had just gotten my first sales job in recovery, and I met this gentleman, awesome guy. I actually bumped into him at a church service a few months back. And he's like, I follow you on Facebook. You're doing awesome. But he used to tell me, he's like, you should keep that story in your back pocket. He's like, not everybody needs to know that you used to do like hardcore drugs and like. And when I got this job, I was 2 weeks sober. 2 weeks sober. They believed in me. They hired me as a telemarketing sales rep, and they promoted me and everything. And shout out, you know, Jay Gotrin, Alliance Security at the time, because they believed in me and they drilled in this positive mental attitude mantra. And I had something to look forward to, going to work with men and women that were dressed nice, that were working, that weren't using, and like, but I remember this guy telling me, like, you kind of want to keep that story in your back pocket. And I'm like, well, that's my story. Yeah. Like, I want, like, it's me. I'll never not talk about it because I want to remind myself, remember, you threw away 3 years. Yeah. Remember, you couldn't quit. Remember, you went to jail and promised you wouldn't get high again. And you got out and you got high again. So if I stopped talking about it, and I had this attitude 2 weeks into sobriety, and I still have it 10 years into it, I'm very, very humbled when someone says, Mo, who should I talk to? Or what did you do? How did you do it? My son's been clean for 4 days. Like, what should he do? Or my son's still struggling. What should he do? You have to want it. You have to know. And my biggest thing was, like, being around people that get it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, like this gets me. Like, I'll be buzzing off of this this conversation for the next few days because, like, you get it. You get it. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you obviously you're doing well for yourself right now with the contracting work. But when you were using, did you see yourself like having a work van, having a full-time job, having all your tools back? Do you know what I mean? Like,
actually, I was going to mention this fucking earlier. I sold my work van.
That's what I mean.
For fucking drugs before I went into my last rehab.
Yeah, so it's like
and spent 3 days just fucking smoking crack, smoking meth, and fucking until I couldn't move anymore, and then calling up that detox and getting there.
And now look at you.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, we have to let people know, like, it can happen. It can happen.
Absolutely.
If you have 3 hours clean, turn it into 6.
Yes.
Turn it into 9. Like, turn it into tomorrow morning you wake up and have coffee and a cigarette and no drugs. Like, do you know what I mean?
You
Like,
can add that cigarette.
Yeah, well, I remember that.
Yes.
So remember the first 2 days, and don't, like, the vodka didn't help, but the first 2 days of giving up crack and meth, I drank vodka because I was like, I need something.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait, you can't keep drinking. So I was like, let's give up the drinking.
Yeah.
And then on Monday, I think I still had a few cigarettes. And so, like, I had that crutch, but I was like, and you don't physically withdraw from crack and cocaine, but mentally I was like having like panic attacks. I was having like hallucinations. Like, I was like, had all this crazy anxiety, but it eventually got better. And you have to find something that you can turn to. So one other quick story, if I'm not talking too much.
No, please.
I had just about 3 years again. Okay, so this was this current journey right now. I had about 3 years, and at the time, we had to leave our apartment, and I waited till the last minute. I was working full time, and I waited. The U-Haul was outside the apartment. We rented the U-Haul. I had to have everything out by that night and have it moved out by Saturday morning. I had to work on Saturday. I worked all day Friday. I waited till the last minute. I kept putting it off because I was like so mad, and I wasn't dealing with the reality of like, you got to pack and move. I was just mad, and I was brushing it off. So now Friday night comes, just got out of work, super stressed, super anxious, got to pack the U-Haul. So I'm packing, and what do I find in the cupboard? I don't know if it was from me or from, whoever was, whatever the living situation was at the time, but I find a bottle, and I grab that bottle, I twist it off the cap, and I was so close. I said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I literally yelled at myself, and I was like, "No." And I put the cap back on. I had dress shoes on, and I said, "You gotta run. Like, you gotta do something." And I remember I ran to the corner store to buy cat food, and I ran back home, and in dress pants and dress shoes, and the little act of feeding the cat, not high or drunk. So I didn't throw away my sobriety.
Yeah.
And I was feeding the cat. I was so relieved.
Oh
the
my
stress
God.
and the anxiety of having to pack, I was so freaking proud of myself that I didn't take a sip of that alcohol.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is what happens. Like, because I used to, I never want to be ignorant to the fact that, like, you can relapse.
Sure.
And because you get into these numbers where you're like, oh, I got 5 years. I got, I'm all set. You're never all set. I mean, and I'm speaking for myself, but I know I'm never all set because I was at that 3 year mark, and I was like, this close. This close to throwing it all away, because I wasn't going to stop at one sip.
Of
Sure.
course.
You know what I mean? I wasn't going to stop at
Yeah.
one sip. So I was just like, I'll tell that story forever because I was so proud of myself that I dumped it, didn't drink it. I had the running. Like, why else would I was so excited to run to the store to buy cat food.
I couldn't wait to feed my cat.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great story.
And I was just so proud of myself.
You
And-
should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was really proud of myself that I didn't cave in. But then I learned. It was such a good tool for the toolbox. I learned that, wow, you were this close because of stress, anxiety, maybe procrastination, maybe your lack of dealing with reality. So now when things come up that I don't want to deal with, I'm like, you have to.
Yeah.
You have to. And it's not, and I say it all the time, we don't have to, we get to. Like, the woman that I was talking about, she says it all the time. She goes, I don't run like to stay sober. I get to run because I am sober. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be able to be doing all these marathons and races and traveling and asking my boss for time off. Like, I always tell this other story too. Like, I remember one time being in prison. When I went to prison, like, I think the longest I ever did, and I'm not trying to make light of it, but there are people out there that have been in worse circumstances. I did 1 year sentence, which turned to like 9 months on good behavior.
Okay.
And so I was doing a 9 month sentence, and I wanted to go to the barber shop, and I had to fill out a pass. I had to get signed by one person. I had to get signed by another person. I had to get approved. I had to get put on the calendar. And then it was like 3 weeks later that the actual haircut was going to take place.
Yep.
And I remember that Saturday waking up, the pass was approved, everything had gotten checked. I was finally going to get my little haircut in prison. And I remember thinking, how could you ever not be grateful for your freedoms, like your basic freedoms? Like, look what you just had to do. Like, never mind if you want to magnify the fact that, like, somebody's telling you when you can shower, when you can go to the bathroom, when you can eat, all that stuff. Like, but that little piece always was like, I was like, you can never not be grateful. So now, like, on Thursdays, on my day off from work, I, like, stack it with all these crazy activities, like my biggest workouts of the week, and, like, I'll do laundry, yoga, long run, barbershop, like, and it's always because, like, I'm so grateful that I'm in a position where I can afford to go to a hot yoga class. Mm-hmm. I'm doing my own laundry. I'm not like the stuff that I used to do. Like, I can remember washing up in a fast food bathroom. So like, though I always want to, I always play games with my mind to keep me motivated and stuff. The yoga studio that I practice at is right around the corner from a house where I was smoking and drinking, and I completely blew off my family that weekend. And I thought, like, at that time, the only thing that mattered was the fact that I had drugs and beer.
Yeah.
And nothing else mattered. And I really, really disappointed my son and his side of the family and my family that weekend because of drugs and alcohol. And so to fast forward and to be in that same neighborhood doing something about my health, my emotional health, my physical health, like, it's just such a blessing. It's such a cool thing to be like.
Yeah, it's got to be empowering, too.
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I always share it because I flipped the coin. Like, I'm not getting high in that house. Like, we sold the TV. It was Super Bowl weekend. We sold the TV, and then we used, and it's not funny. And when I tell these stories, it's not we can laugh because we get it. But we sold the TV, and we used the radio antenna to push the crack pipe, so I couldn't even listen to the Super Bowl. And I remember sitting there thinking, you can't even listen to the Super Bowl on the radio because you're a drug addict. Mm-hmm. Like, this isn't normal.
Yeah.
This isn't normal, and you need to be normal. You will not be normal if you don't stop using. So,
did anybody in your family struggle with addiction or anything like that?
So growing up, I saw Mom and Dad drink a little bit, but they stopped at such a young age. Like, when I can remember being, like, I wasn't even 10 years old yet, and my dad quit drinking.
Oh, wow.
I think the doctor told him he had to.
Okay.
But he did.
Wow.
And he never drank again. So that's probably 30 plus years. Not probably, it's definitely.
Yeah.
So 30 plus years.
Wow.
And then seeing my mom drink a little bit with, like, my aunt and stuff, she stopped, I want to say, 30 years ago.
Wow.
So, like, I guess it's in the family, but I feel like I'm the problem in the family, and I don't want to pass it on to my sons. Sure. You know what I mean? So, like, I have the conversations with them, like, hey, listen, like, there's no gray area. Like, you don't do a little bit of this stuff.
Yeah.
Because there's no such thing as, like, a little bit of this stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Are you working a program now that they still, so you're 10 years, you just celebrated 10 years. Do you do AA? Like, do you work AA? Do you work NA? Like, do you do any of that?
So not as frequently as I should. There's a NA meeting on Saturday nights that's close to my job.
Yeah.
That I've gone to several times. So I have a friend, very, very close friend. He just celebrated 15 years.
Awesome.
So remember when I relapsed at the 3 years? We met in the program.
Oh, wow.
And I took him under my wing, and because I was like, we were both from the same hometown, and I was like, you need somebody to show you the ropes. Like, and I just took pride in, like, having some clean time, taking him under my wing, showing him the ropes of the program. He became an RA. He put himself through a master's program at Rick and URI. And he just celebrated 15 years.
That's fantastic.
We get together once a week, and if we skip a week, we'll do it the next week. But we get together for dinner or a power walk, and we literally talk just like this.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember when we had $60 and we would never go out for a burger and a shake?
Wow.
We would go out and spend it on a bag of rock, a pack of smokes, and then wake up feeling like crap.
Yeah.
And we talk to each other like that. And I have a friend at work that we joke around about, like, using, but it's not joking around.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we used to be that crazy person, and now look at us. Like, and I feel like if I don't have those conversations and I lose sight of the recovery piece, like, I can't ever, like, I love how you open up the podcast with I'm an addict, because we have to always keep it at the forefront. So to answer your question more directly, staying vocal on social, staying vocal in the community, and having a couple of solid friends that I do that fellowship with is my way.
Love it.
And I really want to grow in the speaking space. I mentioned when we were emailing and talking, I've been really fortunate just from opportunities where, like, an old friend from high school, her and her husband are both staff members at one of the inner city schools, one of the tech schools in Central Falls, and she was like, Mo, your story's awesome. You should come speak to my kids.
That's cool.
And her husband's like, runs the place, and he was like, you should speak to my kids.
I love that.
And they let me in, and I get to speak to the kids. And then that led to another opportunity where this guidance counselor invited me in to Central Falls High School, and she was like, you have, like, the missing ingredient, because I can tell these kids don't do drugs, and they look at me and they know I've never done drugs. She's like, you tell these stories, and I don't want, like, and I say it all the time, like, I talk about the drug use, but it's not to glorify it. I want people to know, like, I got to a point where I was gross and disgusting and losing at life. You know what I mean? I remember one time I posted and I put the word loser above my head, and my friend was like, oh, you shouldn't call yourself a loser. And I was like, but I never want to glorify it. Like, I had, like, a designer t-shirt on and, like, fancy jeans, and I was at, like, a nice restaurant, but I was addicted to crack and meth. Like, that's not a good life. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I wrote the word loser because on the outside, I thought I looked great, but I was literally losing at life, and I was throwing my life away. That's the message I want to deliver. So between social, between running, between, like, word of mouth in the community, that's how I stay super active, and I want to grow in that space of being able to share my story. One of my goals before the end of the year would be to pick up the first certification to be, like, a peer recovery coach, and then find out what the next steps are to be, like, a licensed, not so much like go back to college, but the basics to become like a licensed counselor. Yeah,
that's awesome.
We need people that get it.
Yeah, it's good, man. I just went back to school.
Yeah, he wants to do the same thing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. I think it's so interesting. I think just so obviously we're early, and we talked a little bit about Steve and I, but being in early recovery. Steve and I recently, about a month ago, graduated from an IOP program. So once we graduated, well, even like about a month and a half before, we had talked about starting this podcast. And our main reason was because, one, it's going to help us outside of the program once we finish, and two, we want to be able to help other people as well. I think it's, like, really hard when you're in early recovery to, one, put the shame down, or aside or whatever, and two, realize that you're not a shitty person, So putting those aside and, like, really starting to do, like, the inner work, going to meetings and, like, finally, like, putting yourself in an environment with, sober people, or surrounding yourself with people that genuinely care, about you, rather than that aren't your drug friends or your drinking friends or, whatever it is. But I just think it's so cool what you do. What you're doing. I think it's awesome. Do you have any do you have any things that you're speaking at recently or coming up?
No, just another guest appearance. And I have a friend, Eric, that wants to help me with my own podcast.
Awesome.
And I kind of dragged my feet on the opportunity a little bit, and I need to not do that because I think I'm excited with the opportunity to let others lift up their voice as well.
Yeah.
I talk about myself and my story all the time. Yeah. But I say, we all have stories, but I got to kind of, like, let other people tell their stories because I'm always telling mine. But I do. I take pride in the fact that people look at it as an inspiration. So I've been hooked up with not only Heron Project, but with Marathon Sports and Lululemon.
Oh, cool.
And they've backed me, and they believe in my story, and they believe in my activeness in the community. So I've been able to hold these community events. So I've said the word a dozen times already. One of my favorite mantras is running the streets that used to run me. I'll run, and I'll literally run through South Providence to remind myself, think about what you used to do on these streets. And now you're healthy, you're sober, you're working, you can afford to sign up for a race and go show up and have fun. And so where I'm going with that is these two groups have supported me and allowed me to hold community events. The community events aren't 100% just focused on sobriety, but everybody knows my story. So, for example, the first time I had one, this couple came up to me and they were like, Maurice, you don't know us, but, I'm not going to say their names, but like, this is my boyfriend. He was struggling. He has 6 months, and he's going to sign up for his first race. He's here doing your 5K because we found you on Instagram.
Wow.
And she was a runner. She didn't struggle with any substances. She's in the medical field. But she was like, I told him about you. I told him about you and how you always talk about sobriety and how you always talk about positivity. And I told him you're the kind of guy he needs to follow. So I was just like blown away. Because here's somebody I never, ever met. And like, they never even really like said hi on Insta. They just showed up.
Yeah.
And they were like, we're here to support because
that's so cool.
She's like, I found this like, recovery event and you're hosting it and we're here. And I was like, this is so friggin' awesome. And then like the other piece of that is like having people look at me as being motivational in the running space where like I'll have a mom and daughter that have never done a 5K together and now they're doing it together because I'm able to have this event. So shout out to Marathon Sports and Lululemon Garden City for believing in me and backing me because I'm having another event. I'll invite you both before the end of the year.
That's awesome. Yeah. Cool. So awesome.
Hopefully to bring more people together through positive connection, encouragement and so forth.
Love
it. Yeah. So I want to go back to that the podcast we were talking about. Possibly talking about.
Well, it's in the works.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Well, if you guys need any technical side,
thank you.
We should talk.
Yeah, we should definitely talk because I'm the worst with the technical and the admin side. But I have a ton of ideas. I love to talk, obviously, if you couldn't tell. So I'll have to remind myself that there's like a guest.
Yeah, right.
You're like, hold on a second.
Yeah, I'll have to like shut my mic off. But I'm excited. I know. I just feel like it's been a growing space for so long, but I feel like there can never be enough because, like, let's say you have your favorite 3 podcasts. If someone says, "Oh, you're going to listen to this conversation," "Oh, you're going to listen to this conversation," like I was recently featured on my buddy Michael, who has Enjoy Your Life brand, and he put me on his podcast. And the way that he like promoted it and cut it up into videos and shot it all over the place, people were sending me messages like, "Bro, like your story is so awesome." Like when they recorded, I was like, I told him I used hashtag back from crack, and the guy was like, "That's genius." he's like, "That's so awesome." And they got all fired up, and then this guy got up and was like, he's like, "Bro," he's like, "I used to be a vicious alcoholic. I just celebrated 1 year." He's like, "You get me fired up." He's like, "I love that you talk about it." And it's like, somebody at work recently came up to me and was like, "I just hit 12 months clean."
Wow.
He goes, "I'm not like you. I don't post on social and stuff." Like, he goes, "But I wanted to share it with you." And I was like, that's amazing. Cool. And then he said, one of his friends in his circle was like, you should share, because you would be surprised who you help. And he shared on social that he was 12 months and, that he was celebrating, he was proud of himself. And a lot of people reached out to him.
Yeah, that's awesome.
With questions, with congratulations. But the ones we want to reach are like the ones that are like, hey, how'd you do it?
Yeah.
I'm struggling right now. How'd you stop drinking?
Yeah.
How'd you stop using?
Yeah.
And just to like, you have to want it. You have to believe that the life without substances is so much better.
Sure.
You could be my friend, like so many kudos to him because he has a very rough family situation where he doesn't have a family support system, but he wanted a better life and he's never picked up again. And I never want to take those things for granted, that not everybody is going to have a mom, a dad, a brother, an aunt that's like proud of them and saying great job.
Right.
Like, you
Yeah.
have to be open to the fact that some people are in some really bad circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely.
But your circumstances will only get better without drugs and alcohol.
100%.
And like you just meet so many amazing people. At one of the meetings I went to, I met a young woman that went through some really bad stuff in life, and she stayed clean. She was already in the program, and she said, I didn't know how I was going to get through this, but I came to a meeting. And now she's the woman that the other young women go to when they go through that same thing. Because they're like, how'd you do it?
Yep.
How'd you stay clean
Yeah.
when that shit happened?
Yeah.
How did you do it? And she's like, this is how I did it, with this meeting, with this group, with other people that get it.
Community.
And if you're early on in recovery, just keep it up. Celebrate the small wins. Celebrate, and if you get denied from the first job, apply for the second one.
Yes.
If you get denied from the second one, apply for the third one. Like, the doors are going to open. And I always share this story. There's a I think it's Chris Rock has a skit, and he talks about like how he got a flat tire on the highway, pulled over, and was like waving for help. And he's like, nobody stopped. He's like, it's not because I was black. He's like, it's not because of that. He goes, I got sick of waiting, so I got the jack out of the back. I started to try to jack up the car and change the tire. He said within minutes, like 4 or 5 people stopped. When people see you helping yourself, they're more willing to help you. When people see you, like, I have so many stories where like people knew I was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And they were like, hey, you should call this person. You should go to this place. Hey, we're having an event this weekend. Or like, you know what I mean? Like, people are willing to help.
Yeah.
I had a judge in Providence, like, completely take care of some old stuff because she found out that I was doing public speaking, raising money for charity, that I was still clean and sober. And because of that sheriff, he put in a good word for me.
Wow.
Where I was the guy that used to like tell stories, about why I didn't have my court payments.
Yes, right. That is so cool. I just think it's awesome how, like, you can, just a little goes a long way, right? So, for instance, somebody had reached out to us on Instagram the other day and was like, I don't know you at all. I don't know Steve. I don't know you. But I came across the podcast and I had to, listen. And I feel like I've known you, for all this stuff. And it's just like, just those little things that like go a long way. And, just having somebody, I remember somebody like a week and a half ago that I barely even knew, something about a job. And she was like, I was like, I'm just not ready to do it yet, and she had reached out and was like, it's okay. Like, when you should be, one, you should be proud of yourself for what you're doing. And two, when you're ready, then you can come talk to me.
That's awesome.
And like, it's just like little things like that this is why we do what we do, right?
Yes.
And this is why we stay sober, and this is why we help others, and this is why service work, and it's all about community. I'm a big on community.
Me too. I can't use the word enough because I say it all the time. Like, the community, it's where I thrive. It's where I come alive. I want to be around people.
Yeah.
I obviously want to share my story, but I want to just I met some great people while I was using, but they weren't genuine friendships. They weren't people you could count on, and they only had one thing on their mind, just like I only had one thing on my mind.
Right.
So as a clean, sober individual, to be around and that was the coolest part about the running community and the ultra running community, is you meet so many people that are former addicts, whether it was, food, gambling, pornography, drugs, alcohol. It was something that they flipped the switch.
Yeah.
And you meet other people that get it. And not just that, but being around people that are grateful for life.
Yes.
Being around people that are positive.
Yeah.
Being around people that are like, hey, you're going to start a project, I want to help.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, if you came up with, I can remember being in a drug house once and being like, "Oh, I'm going to run a marathon," and they were like, "Oh, okay." Like, you know what I mean? So it wasn't an encouraging. It wasn't an encouraging environment where the first thing you said was like, "Let me help you if you need help." You know what I mean? So that's the kind of stuff that should get you fired up. Like, you're going to continue to meet people that are like, "Hey, when you're ready, give me a call." Hey, when you're ready and you need help, give me a call. Like, and that's. Life is so beautiful and so awesome when you do it the right way. And I say it all of the time. Like, it took me forever to figure it out. And I'm still figuring it out.
Sure.
But I'm figuring it out without drugs and alcohol. And to me, that's like the biggest blessing. Like, there are times where, and I just always want to share as much as I can. So thank you for letting me share.
Oh my gosh, please.
I'm sure you've heard of Rich Roll and his podcast, and he's sober, and he had a podcast once about how when he decided to leave his full-time corporate job and pursue the podcast space and to stay sober, he wasn't paying his bills, and like something happened, like he couldn't even afford like the trash removal from his neighborhood. They were like sneaking behind grocery stores to throw away the trash. He couldn't afford like his kids' tuition. He had a Land Rover lease payment, and he wasn't trying to sound like the wrong way, but he was like he couldn't afford these things. So and the repo man came, and his wife like invited the guy in and made him tea or coffee and was like, "Everything's gonna be all right." And Rich, everything's gonna be all right, and you have to remain calm even though things are chaotic. You have to remain calm, and he believed that taking the next best step, which was not drinking, not drugging, and not going off the deep end just because everything's going crazy. He believed that would work. And obviously it's worked. He's one of the most successful podcasters out there. So my relation to that story is last year, by my own doings, I put myself in a really bad situation financially. And I was being super irresponsible and ignorant to a lot of important things. So the repo man came to my job and took my car. And everybody was making fun of me. Like, my friends were making fun of me because they're like, "You work at a car dealership. How are you getting your car repoed? Like, what are you doing? Like, how can you not have money to make your car payment?" And it was because I was just being irresponsible and I wasn't doing the right thing with my money. I was probably buying stuff to go run marathons. Full transparency.
I love it.
But so the point is, when the guy said, "Do you need anything out of your car?" I was like, "Oh, let me grab my yoga mat." And my friend at work, she was like, "You are nuts." She's like, "How can you even care about your yoga mat? Like, they're taking your car." She's like, "I would be bugging out. I'd be bugging out. How come you're so calm? Like, how can you be smiling?" And I grabbed my yoga mat, put it to the side, went upstairs, sat down, took a deep breath, ate my lunch, and I was thinking about what was the next best thing I could do. And the next best thing I could do was not bug out, not flip out. My boss pulled me into the office and offered help, and was like, "What's going on? How'd you let this happen? You do great here. How'd you let this happen? What's going on? Do you need to talk? Like, you're not using, are you? Like, you know what I mean?" So I had people that cared about me. But the point was, like, I never want to be ignorant to the fact that, like, life happens, and it's not all. You can't assume that somebody has everything figured out and everything going on. So I share that story because I want people to know that, like, life happens. I put myself in that situation. Do you know what I mean? The repo man came because I didn't make my car payment. You know what I mean? It wasn't a mistake. So the point is, I knew that if I took my yoga mat out of the car, I could go to yoga that night. I'd find a ride. I'd find a way to get there. I could get to my class. If I messed up my routine, then I would be in trouble.
Smart.
If I messed up my routine, if I didn't go to bed after yoga and get up and go to the gym the next day and make it to work and have a productive day and go running that night, if I messed up my routine, that's when I would be in trouble about, "Oh, wait, I said I would never go to a liquor store." You know what I mean? Like, but my car just got repoed. And then you have that big piece of, and my problem used to be justification. So now, in order to stop my brain from going down that way, I had to stay focused. And I'll say it over and over and over again. I stayed focused on the next best thing. The next best step to take was to go to yoga that night. And I was so grateful.
Wow.
And it was a smack in the face of reality that I needed to get my finances in order and probably stop signing up for things that I can't technically afford when I should be paying my bills on time. So, yeah, that's very
just like the insight to do the next best thing. Like, that's very hard for people to grasp that idea, especially when you're an addict or in recovery. It's really hard to do the right thing sometimes, you know?
I think that with the combination of not looking at the problem and consuming yourself with the problem, but thinking about the solution. You know, what's the solution to this problem instead of focusing on how shitty of this situation I've made this into, you know? And we can go so far into the rabbit hole of fucking playing the victim, you know, and saying, why the fuck did I do this? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I prepare for this? Why didn't I put my finances that way? And then, you're right, that liquor store looks a lot closer when you fucking miss yoga, you miss a gym, because you're still focused on that fucking problem instead of the solution the next couple days.
Yeah, and that's exactly, I forgot what I was going to say, but you have to just focus on the positives and not go down. Like, I say it all the time, like, I could beat myself up about, like, what I don't have, what I didn't do right, but I have so much to be grateful for, and so many things I did do right. And it was my own doings.
Yeah,
it
right.
really was. So I was like,
sure.
you can fix this. It's a simple fix. Just make sure you do it.
Is routine a big thing for you?
Yes.
Like, in recovery.
So the fact that, like, I'm a guy that, like, wakes up early to go to the gym, stays on the same routine for, like, workouts, running, signing up for races, going to work, like, it's crucial, it's productive, it's my addictive personality staying in motion, but for all positive things. Like if I didn't have running in the community, thank goodness I would be able to, like, maybe do some public speaking, or maybe do some biking, or maybe I would be going crazy, but
like, let's be real.
So yeah, but I have the gym, I have yoga and stuff, but yeah, all of that stuff, and I just douse myself with gratitude, like, to think that I'm in a position where, like, I can afford a gym membership. Like, I have a very good friend at one of my yoga studios. She's the instructor and the owner of the studio.
Oh, awesome.
And when she's my friend because I practice there. She drills home this attitude of, like, gratitude of, like, remember the day when you didn't have $20 to sign up for a yoga class. Remember the day when you didn't have a car. And not everybody can get that.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But, like, you can relate it to something.
Absolutely.
Because we all have rough seasons in life. And whether you're in recovery or not. And for me, it was so relatable because there was a time where I didn't have $20. And I used to, this is what I wanted to say, to bounce off what you said, not taking the victim role. Because I used to have that attitude of must be nice.
Yeah.
Must be nice. You know, they don't know what it's like. They don't know what it's like to be making peanut butter and jelly again for dinner because, you know what I mean? Or they don't know what it's like to, you know, like, not have enough money to pay your electric bill. Like, you know what I mean? Like, must be nice. And I stopped blaming all of these outside scenarios and I started blaming myself. Like, I started taking ownership and taking accountability. Like, if you want to do this, you have to do this first. Like, and it started with when I stopped using. Like, if I wanted a better life, I had to stop using. If I wanted money, my thing when I talked about the people sitting in traffic, I was like, they got a paycheck today. Why'd they get a paycheck today? Because they have a job. Like, you need a job. You can't be mad that you didn't get a paycheck today if you don't have a job. So go get a job, and then next Friday, you'll be one of those people that gets a paycheck. And that was my motivation. And I was like, stop blaming. Like, it's nobody else's fault. And I know it's, like, people, like, if you listen to the right stuff and the right conversations, like, that conversation is out there. Like, it's nobody else's fault.
Yeah.
We're so lucky that, like I say it all the time, like, we live in a society where I was down here and I'm not anywhere near where I want to be, but I'm way further than where I used to be.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I know that sounds cliche, but it's true. Like, I was down here and now I'm up here because I stopped using. I got a job. I believed in myself. I stopped blaming other people. I stopped saying, must be nice. She doesn't know what it's like. He doesn't know what it's like. When you do know what it's like, because you went through your own storms. Do you know what I mean? Like, other people get it. Other people, I have another friend he's like a mentor to me, and he's like, you got to remember, like, your story's great, and it's great that you overcame addiction, but you got to remember there are people that are working their butts off that are going through a lot of crappy stuff in life, and they didn't battle addiction. Like, it's great that you overcame it, but just keep getting up and doing the right thing, and that's a victory too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's a victory too. Like, keep getting up and doing the right thing, because that's kind of what you have to do.
Absolutely.
It's you know, it's not like, and I don't do it for a pat on the back. We do it to share. We do it to inspire. Because I'm very quick to recognize the fact that all I do is talk about my story. But I love to talk about it, and I want to inspire people, and it keeps me focused.
I love that you love to talk about it. That's fantastic. I mean, it's very hard for people to talk about their story, or hard to talk about how they even, you know, the hard truths in their life, or, you know, coming to terms with that you're an addict, you know, or that you are in recovery. Like, it's hard for people to have that hard truth.
And we have to end the stigma. Like, I didn't come from a family or a neighborhood or a school system that encouraged drug use. Do you know what I mean? Like, and not that people do, not that there are households like that, but what I'm trying to say is, like, it can happen to anybody. Like, my parents didn't raise me to become a homeless drug addict, and that's what I became. And as horrible as it sounds, I make light of it only because I overcame it.
Yeah.
Sure.
But if you're homeless and if you're a drug addict, you can change your life, because we're living proof. We're living proof, and we have to continue to be the living proof for others that it affects everybody. It can start with just a little bit of substance use that turns to abuse, and then it could turn to death with the fentanyl and everything that's out there, and not just fentanyl. I mean, you can die from cocaine, crack, heroin, meth. You can die from any of those things.
Yeah.
Alcohol.
Exactly.
Alcohol.
Alcohol. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Maurice, I want to thank you for coming on. I mean,
thanks for having me.
Great.
Yeah.
You know, I'm so glad we were able to make this happen. I definitely make sure you get in contact with us about your upcoming events.
I definitely
we would
will.
love to
Yeah,
be. Yeah,
absolutely. And we'll have a follow-up episode.
Absolutely.
I'll have you on mine.
Yes, we would love that.
Yeah.
Sounds good, man.
And congratulations on the continued sobriety.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me and for
Absolutely.
making me feel special and allowing me to share and talk the whole evening.
Absolutely.
Awesome,
Thank you so
man.
much for coming on. We really do appreciate
Thank you.
and sharing your story.
And everybody out there, high fives, positive vibes.
We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
Thanks.